The arrogant mother-in-law never knew that the woman she had driven away, my mother, was actually a powerful business tycoon, the owner of the very company that fed all of them. Their shock was indescribable when they saw my mother and me buying a private jet. Before the story begins, please write in the comments which country or city you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that stories with meaning can continue to grow and bring you even more powerful stories. The night wind of New York City always carried a mixture of hope and despair. For Rachel, who stood silently on the balcony of her luxury apartment, that night tasted like a bitter cup she had been forced to drink far too often. From inside the living room, the laughter of Margaret and Andrew echoed clearly. They were watching an entertainment show. From time to time, Margaret showered her son with praise, calling him successful, accomplished, and exceptional. Rachel exhaled slowly. Successful. In her mother-in-law's dictionary, success had always been synonymous with Andrew, her husband, and never with Rachel herself. Rachel was a young, beautiful woman with clear brown eyes that often hid unspoken truths and a faint smile that rarely reached them. She had grown up in a modest family in a small rural town, raised by a single mother, Anna, who struggled tirelessly to provide for her. Despite their financial limitations, Anna had always instilled values of honesty, hard work, and education in her daughter. Thanks to her mother's perseverance, Rachel earned a full scholarship and graduated top of her class from a prestigious university. Yet, none of those achievements meant anything to Andrew's family. Andrew, who was the only son of Margaret, a flamboyant middle-aged woman with luxurious tastes and an ego just as extravagant, from the very beginning, Margaret had fiercely opposed her son's relationship with Rachel. "What will people say?" she once whispered to Andrew, unaware that Rachel overheard every word. "My wealthy son marrying a small-town girl with nothing to her name?" Andrew, who desperately craved his mother's approval, was constantly trapped between two women, one he loved and one he feared. Their marriage 3 years ago only happened after Andrew threatened to elope if Margaret continued to object. Forced to give her blessing, Margaret did so with countless conditions and never-ending mockery. Rachel knew she had entered a golden cage, one already rusted from the inside. The luxury apartment, the shiny cars in the garage, and all the wealth Andrew provided were merely a thin veil covering an emptiness created by constant belittlement, cruel remarks, and unfair comparisons, always delivered by Margaret. The greatest victim of Margaret's verbal cruelty was Anna, Rachel's mother. Every time Anna visited from her hometown, it turned into a humiliating ordeal. Margaret would scan Anna from top to toe and make cutting remarks about her simple clothes, her lack of glamour, or the homemade food she brought. "What is this? Cornmeal? Don't contaminate my kitchen with such provincial food." Anna had lowered her head in shame that day. Rachel's resentment had piled up like an iceberg, ready to collapse at any moment. She always swallowed her anger for the sake of marital harmony, a harmony that never truly existed. Andrew would apologize afterwards every single time. "I'm sorry, honey, that's just how my mom is. I'll talk to her." Promises that were never fulfilled. Andrew was too cowardly to confront his mother, too comfortable living under her shadow. And Rachel, she was growing tired. Tired of pretending, tired of always being the inadequate daughter-in-law, and most of all, tired of how her mother was treated. That morning, Rachel woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest, not from a nightmare, but from certainty. Her mother, Anna, was coming to visit, and just like every time before, Anna's arrival signaled the beginning of another performance filled with sarcasm and humiliation. She glanced beside her. Andrew was still asleep, breathing peacefully, his face free of worry. Sometimes she envied his emotional detachment, his ability to switch off his feelings at will. She quietly left the bed and went to the kitchen. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and golden toast filled the space, creating a warmth that sharply contrasted with the cold in her heart. Soon, elegant footsteps approached. Margaret appeared, wearing a silk marooned robe and a green facial mask that smelled strongly of herbs. She sat at the dining table with an air of superiority, her large diamond ring catching the light as she appraised Rachel. "Your cooking is acceptable," Margaret said, her voice muffled by the mask, "but don't compare it to the chef back at my house. Higher quality ingredients, of course, and much cleaner." Rachel merely nodded, flipping the toast. Nothing she would do would ever be good enough. "Oh, your mother is coming today, isn't she?" Margaret asked, her tone suddenly icy. "I hope she doesn't bring strange village gifts. I don't want this place smelling like dirt or farmland. My reputation could be ruined." Rachel clenched her fists under the table. "You don't need to worry," she replied calmly. "She won't bring anything troublesome." "Good," Margaret said, sipping her coffee gracefully. "I won't have my status as the lady of this house disturbed by outsiders." At 10 o'clock, the apartment bell rang. Rachel's heart pounded. She opened the door to see Anna, holding a simple fabric bag with a warm, familiar smile. She hugged her tightly, breathing in the scent of rain-soaked earth and home, instantly calming her nerves. Before Rachel could say anything, Margaret's sharp voice rang out from the living room. "Oh, you've arrived already? I thought you'd get lost in the city. Not used to big places, are you?" Anna smiled politely. "Good morning, Margaret. Sorry to trouble you." "Trouble? Of course not," Margaret replied sweetly, though her eyes were cold. "But I hope you didn't bring unnecessary items. This house is filled with valuable things." Rachel saw her mother's gaze dim slightly. "It's just clothes," Rachel said quickly. "Oh, really?" Margaret laughed. "I thought you'd bring farm produce again. Peanuts, cassava, something like that." Andrew emerged from the bathroom, hair still damp. "Andrew, look, your mother-in-law is here. Let's hope there's no cheap drama today." Andrew smiled stiffly. "Welcome, Anna." And once again, the same old script played out. Anna tried to be pleasant, Margaret delivered insult after insult, and Andrew remained silent. Rachel watched her mother sit awkwardly on the sofa, shrinking herself to avoid attention. Something inside Rachel finally cracked. She knew her limit had been reached. After an unbearably tense lunch, Rachel managed to pull her mother into the master bedroom, the only place that felt like a refuge from Margaret's dominance and Andrew's indifference. A decision had to be made. Anna sat on the edge of the plush, king-size bed, her posture stiff and fragile. Her gaze was empty, drifting far beyond the massive glass window that revealed the dazzling skyline of Manhattan. Skyscrapers pierced the clear blue sky, while traffic below flowed like restless ants through the city streets. Yet all the luxury and glitter outside failed to touch the deep sadness clearly reflected in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom, for how Margaret treats you," Rachel whispered, her voice caught painfully in her throat. She knelt beside her mother, looking up at Anna's exhausted face. Gently, she held her mother's hands, wrinkled yet still warm, trying to pass her strength through that fragile touch. Anna smiled faintly. It was a smile born not of happiness, but of endurance, one meant to comfort her daughter despite her own pain. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm used to it. Don't let it trouble your heart." "But I'm not used to it, Mom," Rachel interrupted, her voice trembling as tears threatened to fall. "I can't accept this. Every time they treat you like that, it hurts me. I can't stand seeing you humiliated over and over again. You travel all the way from a small town just to be treated like a servant, like an unwanted stranger. Why do you have to endure this? Why don't you defend yourself? You have dignity too." Tears pooled in Rachel's eyes, spilling over the edges. Anna let out a long, weary sigh. Her eyes wandered somewhere far into the past. She gently stroked Rachel's hair. There are things I can't fully tell you yet, burdens I've carried alone for years, she said softly. But believe me, I did all of this for your future. Rachel frowned. A sense of dread crept into her chest. For my future? What do you mean? Are you hiding something from me? Why won't you be honest? She pressed, fear lacing her curiosity. Anna fell silent, torn, weighing each word carefully, like someone standing on the edge of a cliff. Then she looked straight into Rachel's eyes, regret heavy in her gaze. Rachel, there was an agreement, a promise I made with Andrew's family. Rachel felt as if she'd been struck in the chest. What kind of agreement? She whispered. When you were in college, living in the city, the tuition was overwhelming. I was desperate. My savings were almost gone, and your tuition kept increasing. I borrowed everywhere I could, but there was no way out. She swallowed hard. Andrew found out. He came to see me secretly. He said he would pay for your education, every dollar, until you graduated with honors. Rachel's breath caught. But there were conditions, Anna continued. I was not allowed to interfere in your marriage, and the hardest part, I had to endure everything his family did to me, especially Margaret, no matter how painful it was. Even if I was insulted or humiliated, I had to stay silent. Rachel's eyes widened in disbelief. Shock, rage, grief, and guilt crashed into her all at once. So, all this humiliation? Rachel whispered, her voice breaking. Every insult, every cruel remark, all of it was the price for my education? Her heart shattered. This happened because of me? Because my tuition was expensive? No, Anna said quickly, shaking her head as tears streamed down her face. Never think that. This was my choice. I wanted you to succeed. I wanted you to have a life better than mine. Andrew only took advantage of our desperation, and I agreed. Rachel sobbed uncontrollably. Now everything made sense. The illnesses, the exhaustion etched in her mother's face. It wasn't just physical pain. It was a wounded heart that never healed. I had no other choice, Anna whispered through tears. I couldn't let you drop out. Education was your only way to a better future. Rachel wrapped her arms tightly around her mother, as if trying to piece her broken heart back together. Their tears mingled, soaking into Rachel's shoulder. The hidden agreement explained everything. Anna's silence, Andrew's cowardice, Margaret's unchecked cruelty. Rachel's heart was shattered, but beneath the pain a spark ignited, a fire of anger, a resolve to reclaim not just her dignity, but her mother's honor. That night, after the painfully awkward dinner, the apartment felt heavier than ever. The cold air conditioning couldn't dispel the suffocating tension. Rachel watched her mother smile weakly, chatting with Andrew about vacation plans as if nothing had happened. Rachel knew that smile was a fragile mask. Margaret, sensing the tension, seemed to enjoy it. After dinner, they gathered in the living room. Andrew lounged on the sofa, absorbed in his phone, chuckling at videos, completely oblivious. Margaret sat in her air chair, flipping through a fashion magazine. Suddenly, bang! She slammed her hand on the glass coffee table. The porcelain teacups rattled. "I've had enough," she screeched. Andrew jolted upright. "I'm sick of the charade. I'm sick of her presence in my house." She pointed directly at Anna. "This woman suffocates my home. She smells strange, she talks like a peasant, and I know she's only here to drain our money. A parasite." Rachel's blood boiled. "Enough!" Rachel shouted. "Why do you always humiliate my mother? What did she ever do to you?" "She exists. She leeches off Andrew's kindness." She turned back to Margaret, her face flushed with rage. "Get out. Now. I don't care where you go, even if you sleep on the streets. Never step foot in this house again. You're an embarrassment." Rachel turned desperately to Andrew, pleading with her eyes. But Andrew stood frozen, silent, powerless, a coward. Anna slowly stood up, her body trembling. She looked at Rachel with deep apology and sadness, nodding gently, as if saying, "Let it go, my child." "I'm coming with you, Mom," Rachel cried, reaching out, but Margaret grabbed Rachel's arm violently, stopping her. "Just let her go. I don't ever want to see your face again," Margaret sneered. "You're both the same, rebellious, ungrateful, and clueless. Poor, disgusting, and pathetic." With a final shove, Margaret pushed Anna's back, nearly making her stumble over the doorway, as if she couldn't wait to erase her existence from the apartment. Rachel's heart shattered completely. She watched her mother step outside. Anna's back looked unbearably fragile, painfully small, just before Margaret slammed the door shut with a deafening bang. The sound echoed through the luxurious apartment like a gunshot, final, absolute, merciless. Rachel broke down. Tears poured freely down her cheeks, her face burning red with rage and heartbreak. The pain, anger, and disappointment that had been building for years finally exploded. She turned toward Margaret, her eyes blazing with a hatred never seen before. The glare struck straight at Margaret's chest, yet the woman showed no fear. "Remember my words," Rachel screamed, her voice hoarse from crying. "You will regret this for the rest of your life. One day you will kneel before us." Margaret laughed, a sharp, mocking laugh filled with triumph. "Regret? Why would I?" she scoffed. "I feel relieved. This house is finally clean of parasites. You'll never be on our level. Remember that." Rachel turned toward Andrew, who finally stepped closer, trying to reach for her hand. His face showed regret, but it was far too late. "Rachel, please, don't be like this. You know my mom. She's always like that. Just be patient." "Don't touch me, Andrew," Rachel snapped, slapping his hand away. Her eyes burned into him with pure disappointment. "You did nothing. You watched my mother get humiliated and thrown out like an animal, and you stayed silent. You're a coward. You don't deserve to be called a son, let alone a husband. I'm disgusted by you." Her words pierced Andrew like spears. He froze, staring at her in shock. Rachel didn't wait for a response. She turned sharply and stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door even harder than Margaret had earlier. Inside, Rachel collapsed into sobs, letting every suppressed emotion spill freely. The small spark of anger inside her now became a raging inferno, consuming her entire soul. She would never allow her mother to be treated like that again. She would make them pay, in ways they would never expect. That cruel expulsion was the final trigger. Rachel swore they would pay dearly for every tear her mother had shed. After the sobbing finally subsided, leaving her eyes swollen and burning, Rachel rose from the bed. Her face was puffy, her eyes red, but behind them burned an unextinguishable fire. Enough was enough. Enough of being the oppressed daughter-in-law, enough of being treated like a worthless shadow, and especially enough of her mother being humiliated and discarded like trash. The secret agreement Anna had made with Andrew, the sacrifice she had endured for years, now fueled Rachel's determination. Rachel was no longer the obedient small-town girl. She was wounded, but that wound would become her greatest strength. With trembling yet resolute hands, Rachel pulled out her old, faded brown suitcase from the back of the closet. She rarely used it. Most of her clothes were expensive gifts from Andrew. Without hesitation, she packed only the essentials, a few outfits, important documents, and her laptop. She needed nothing from this house. Nothing from this family. Their wealth, their luxury, once so proudly displayed by Margaret, now felt poisonous to her. Just as she zipped the suitcase shut, a soft knock came at the door. Rachel, please open the door. Let's talk calmly. Don't do anything rash, Andrew pleaded. Rachel didn't answer. She knew how these conversations always ended, with her being told to endure, to understand, to be patient. Her patience was gone. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. Andrew froze when he saw the suitcase. Rachel, where are you going? Don't joke around. It's late. I'm not joking, Rachel replied coldly. I'm leaving. I won't stay in a place where my mother is humiliated and thrown out like that. But this is our home. I built it for you. Where will you go alone? My mom didn't mean it. She was just emotional. I'll talk to her. Enough, Andrew. Rachel cut him off, shoving his hand away. I'm sick of your excuses. Your silence was approval. You knew my mother was thrown out, and you said nothing. She looked straight at him, eyes blazing. You stay here with your arrogant mother and enjoy the luxury you protect so fiercely. Without another word, Rachel pulled her suitcase and walked toward the exit. Andrew tried to stop her. Rachel, please. She broke free from his grip with strength he didn't expect. At the doorway, Rachel turned back. Margaret stood there now, shock written across her face, anger mixed with disbelief. You think this is the end? Rachel said quietly, her voice filled with menace. You're wrong. This is only the beginning. You will regret every tear my mother cried. Just wait. And with that, Rachel stepped out. She left behind the luxurious apartment, Andrew frozen in place, and Margaret standing as if struck by lightning. Rachel pressed the elevator button, and when the doors slid open, she stepped inside, her breath shaky but relieved. This was a point of no return. As the elevator descended from the 25th floor, her thoughts spiraled. She didn't know where to go. Returning to her hometown would only deepen the pain. Suddenly, her phone rang. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? Her voice was rough from crying. A calm, authoritative female voice responded. Good evening. Am I speaking with Rachel, daughter of Mrs. Anna Sullivan? Rachel froze. Yes, that's me. Who is this? My name is Daisy. I'm Mrs. Sullivan's personal assistant, the woman said professionally. She knows what happened. She asked me to tell you not to worry and to wait in the apartment lobby. She's on her way to you. Rachel was stunned. Personal assistant? Her mother had never mentioned anything like that. Confusion and a strange flicker of hope collided in her chest. When the elevator doors opened onto the marble-floored lobby, Rachel searched for her mother, but what she saw stopped her breath. Standing there was not the simple woman she knew. Instead, a poised, elegant, middle-aged woman waited, wearing a perfectly tailored navy blazer, her hair styled neatly, minimal yet sophisticated jewelry accenting her presence. Beside her stood a uniformed driver holding a sign that read clearly, Mrs. Anna Sullivan. The elegant woman smiled warmly, but her aura radiated authority. You must be Miss Rachel, she said. I'm Daisy. Mrs. Sullivan is waiting you in the car. Please follow me. Rachel stood frozen. What car? Her mind struggled to catch up. Daisy gestured toward the glass entrance. Outside, a glossy black Mercedes-Benz S-Class waited. Another driver stood ready by the rear door. This was no taxi, no rideshare. This was the car of someone powerful, someone wealthy, someone Rachel realized she had never truly known. Please, miss, Daisy said gently, let's not keep Mrs. Sullivan waiting. Daisy guided Rachel forward with movements that were gentle yet firm, as if she was accustomed to handling people in shock. Rachel stepped out of the lobby, her mind in complete turmoil. A luxury car, a high-class personal assistant, and now her mother waiting inside it, looking like a completely different person. None of this made sense. Her mother was supposed to be a simple woman from a rural town, someone who lived modestly and occasionally helped neighbors with small farming work. How could this be real? Where had all of this come from? The questions spun endlessly in Rachel's mind. When the rear door of the car opened with a soft, refined click, Rachel saw her mother sitting inside, wearing entirely different clothes from what she had been wearing just hours ago. Anna was now dressed in an elegant emerald green silk blazer paired with matching tailored trousers. Her hair was styled neatly into a modern updo, and there was a subtle touch of makeup on her face. Soft pink lipstick, delicate eyeliner, making her look younger, fresher, and radiating an authority Rachel had never seen before. This was no longer the frail, disheveled Anna Margaret had mocked and humiliated earlier, no longer a submissive village woman. Anna looked at Rachel with the same gentle, loving eyes she had always known, but now there was something more emanating from her. Grace, calm, strength. "Sit down, sweetheart," Anna said softly. Her voice was still warm, but now it carried unmistakable confidence as she shifted slightly to make room for Rachel beside her. Rachel stepped into the car, immediately feeling the warmth of the luxurious leather seat beneath her. The scent of premium leather and her mother's light, elegant perfume surrounded her, so different from the smells of home cooking or garden soil she had always associated with Anna. Anna was already seated in the front passenger seat beside the driver, who promptly pressed the start button. The car began to move smoothly, pulling away from the apartment complex. It carried Rachel farther away from Andrew and Margaret, and deeper into a world she had never known existed. "Mom, what is all of this?" Rachel finally spoke, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Who are you really? Why are you dressed like this? This car? Where are we going? Why do you look so different?" Anna smiled faintly, a smile filled with secrecy and quiet relief. "I'm sorry, my dear. I had to hide this from you all these years, for your safety and for your future." She reached out and squeezed Rachel's hand, her touch grounding and reassuring. "Daisy is my personal assistant, and this is one of my operational vehicles." Rachel fell silent. One of her operational vehicles? So her mother had more than one luxury car like this? Where did her mother work to have a personal assistant and a car like this? "But Mom, all this time you said you were just a housewife, that you sometimes helped neighbors back home. I believed you." Anna nodded calmly. "That was true. I am a housewife, but not only that." She turned to Rachel, her gaze firm yet affectionate. "I wanted you to focus on your education. I didn't want you burdened by our real background, or to feel inferior. Our family has never been beneath anyone. And besides, I had my reasons for appearing simple, even shabby, especially in front of Andrew's family." For a brief moment, a sharp glint flashed in Anna's eyes, like a spark of fire. "I did it on purpose," she said quietly, "to test them, to see how far their greed and arrogance would go, to see whether Andrew's love for you was sincere or whether he was merely attracted to wealth that, ironically, was never his to begin with." Rachel's breath caught. So her mother's simplicity, the appearance Margaret constantly mocked, had all been an act, a disguise, a trap, a test. Her eyes widened in shock. "But why, Mom? Why did it have to be you who endured all that humiliation?" Anna exhaled slowly, her expression composed yet powerful. "After the incident when Andrew offered to help pay for your college tuition," Anna said, "I began to suspect his intentions. He came with conditions, using our desperation as leverage." Rachel stiffened. "From that moment on," Anna continued, "I changed my strategy. I wanted to know whether his love was genuine or based on money and status, and I wanted to see how far Margaret would go in belittling us." Rachel tried to speak, but the words refused to come. Her throat felt dry as realization dawned. She had always believed her mother was a helpless, naive woman. Anna met her gaze, and this time, a faint, victorious smile appeared on her lips. My full name is Anna Sullivan, and as Daisy mentioned earlier, I am the founder and CEO of Sullivan Mahardika Holdings. The words struck Rachel like a thunderbolt in broad daylight. Sullivan Mahardika Holdings, the largest real estate development company in Manhattan, the very company where Andrew and Margaret worked as senior executives, the company they boasted endlessly about, the source of their pride, status, and luxurious lifestyle, which meant everything they owned, everything they flaunted, everything they looked down on others with, all came from her mother's company. Rachel felt the world spin. All the scattered pieces of the puzzle suddenly locked together, forming a shocking, complete picture. That was why her mother endured everything so patiently. That was why Margaret's arrogance was so loud. They never knew who the real owner was. A thin, silent smile formed on Rachel's lips, a mix of deep hurt and cold satisfaction, a silent promise of what was to come. The black Mercedes-Benz S-Class glided smoothly through the never-sleeping streets of Manhattan. City lights blurred past the windows, glittering in stark contrast to the storm of emotions inside the car. Rachel sat quietly beside her mother, still trying to absorb the truth. The woman she had believed to be a simple housewife was in fact a powerful business magnate. Her head throbbed with shock, anger, and a strange sense of relief. "How could this be?" she whispered. "Why did you hide everything? Why did you let yourself be humiliated like that?" Anna took a deep breath, her eyes reflecting wisdom forged through years of hardship. "Life is full of performances," she said softly. "Sometimes we must wear masks for a greater purpose." She looked out the window at the towering skyscrapers. "After your father passed away many years ago, I was lost, but I inherited a small legacy from your grandfather. I invested it in real estate when Manhattan was rapidly developing." Rachel listened, mesmerized. "I studied, failed, stood up again. Project by project, I built everything from nothing, through sweat, tears, and sacrifice." Anna turned back to her daughter. "I kept this from you and from everyone back home because I wanted you to grow strong through knowledge, not privilege. And as for Andrew's family, tonight was the final proof." Her jaw tightened. They crossed the line. The car finally stopped before an enormous iron gate guarded by uniformed security. As the gate opened automatically, a stunning modern minimalist mansion came into view. Warm lighting, manicured gardens, and a crystal-clear pool shimmering in the back. "This is one of my properties," Anna said with a small smile. "We'll stay here for now. This is where our new chapter begins." As they stepped inside, household staff lined up respectfully, a head butler, several assistants, and a chef, all bowing politely to Anna. Rachel stood frozen. She had stepped into a world she never knew her mother owned. They entered a spacious, modern home office with floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking a manicured garden. A massive, solid wood desk dominated the room, equipped with the latest iMac, multiple high-end monitors, and advanced digital devices. Anna Sullivan took her seat in the executive chair, then gestured calmly to the chair across from her. "Sit down, Rachel." Rachel obeyed. "Rachel," Anna began, her voice calm yet commanding, "I know you're hurt. I am too, but this is not the time to drown in grief or blind revenge. This is the time to act with clarity and strategy." Anna picked up a sleek tablet from her desk. The screen lit up, revealing a complex corporate interface. "All this time," Anna continued, "Andrew and Margaret have been working at my company. Andrew as head of marketing, Margaret as chief financial officer. They believe they are indispensable. She tapped the screen. They have no idea that every report they submit, every project they manage, every financial approval they sign ends up on my desk. I know every detail. Rachel fell silent. Her heart churned with pain, but also awe at her mother's intelligence and power. Then what do we do, Mom? What's the plan? Rachel finally asked. Anna smiled faintly. It was no longer a gentle smile, but one sharp, calculated, and dangerous. We will make them regret everything, she said quietly. Not with emotional outbursts, but with power, the very power they underestimated, the power they trampled on. Anna tapped several commands on the tablet. The massive screen on the wall lit up, displaying the intricate organizational structure of Sullivan Mahardika Holdings. Tomorrow, Anna said, her eyes gleaming, I return to the office. Openly. I will reclaim full control. Everyone will know who the real owner is. She turned to Rachel, her gaze deep and deliberate. And you, Rachel, I have a special role for you. Me? Rachel pointed at herself, confused, yet a flicker of hope ignited in her chest. Yes, Anna said firmly, you will learn directly from me. You will become my personal assistant. You will learn every detail of this business, every mechanism of this empire. Anna locked eyes with her daughter. You will see with your own eyes how they live in luxury built on what belongs to us, our blood, our legacy. There was an unspoken promise in her gaze. They will be shocked when they see us, Anna continued softly. They will crumble, and we will savor every second, every reaction, every regret on their faces. She leaned back slightly. This is our revenge. Elegant, intelligent, precise, and unforgettable. The ember in Rachel's chest ignited into a roaring flame. The pain hadn't disappeared, but now it had purpose, a carefully crafted plan, a new chapter of her life. She would make Andrew and Margaret kneel, forcing them to witness with their own eyes that the woman they insulted and expelled was the true owner of the empire that fed them, and that Rachel, the daughter-in-law they dismissed as worthless, uneducated, and insignificant, would become the right hand of the CEO, a woman as powerful as her mother. That morning, Manhattan was veiled in a thin mist, slowly dissolving under the rising sun. To Rachel, the air felt lighter, charged with anticipation and the faint scent of victory. She wore a dark charcoal blazer paired with a perfectly tailored pencil skirt, the high-quality fabric draped flawlessly over her figure. Underneath, a crisp white silk blouse. Black patent stiletto heels completed the look. Her hair was styled into a sleek, modern bun. Her makeup was minimal, but precise. Nude lipstick, subtle eyeliner, accentuating eyes now filled with resolve. Rachel stood before a large mirror in her new bedroom, studying her reflection. This was no longer the Rachel who lowered her gaze, doubted herself, and allowed others to walk all over her. This was a new Rachel, strong, unyielding, ready to face anything, even hell itself. Anna Sullivan, now fully embodying her role as a powerful CEO, wore a luxurious cream-colored couture suit. Genuine pearl jewelry shimmered softly at her neck, and a high-end watch adorned her wrist. She smiled proudly at her daughter. "Are you ready, sweetheart?" Anna asked, calmly, her voice steady with conviction. A voice Rachel had only once heard when receiving gentle advice. "I'm ready," Rachel replied. "Very ready," she added, her eyes blazing. Adrenaline surged through her veins, fueling every step. They entered the same black Mercedes-Benz S-Class, now a symbol of their resurgence. Daisy sat in the front passenger seat beside the driver, tablet and phone in hand, efficiently coordinating Anna's packed schedule. The drive to Sullivan Mahardika Holdings headquarters felt short despite Manhattan traffic. Every second pulsed with anticipation. She imagined their faces. Andrew, Margaret, their expressions when they saw them arrive, not as unwanted guests, but as the rightful owner and heir to the empire. The car stopped at the main lobby of the towering glass skyscraper bearing the elegant name Sullivan Mahardika Holdings. Security personnel and receptionists immediately straightened and bowed respectfully. Rachel noticed employees whispering among themselves, recognizing Anna Sullivan, the elusive founder rarely seen in person, a legend who built the empire from nothing. Anna walked forward with composed authority. None of the other security made any move to intercept them, with Rachel and Daisy following closely. The bustling lobby fell silent, as if someone had paused a film mid-scene. All eyes turned toward them. Awe, curiosity, confusion. Everyone knew Anna Sullivan, but the young woman walking beside her, who looked strikingly similar, carrying the same commanding aura, was a mystery. They headed straight for the private executive elevator, reserved exclusively for board members and the CEO. When the doors opened onto the executive floor, home to senior management offices, including Andrew's and Margaret's, Rachel felt her heartbeat accelerate, a war drum pounding in her chest. They stepped out, their strides confident, deliberate. Every step seemed to declare, "We are back, and we rule." Senior executives they passed bowed respectfully, visibly startled by Anna's sudden presence. Rachel caught the faint smile on her mother's lips, a smile that said, "It's time." At the far end of the corridor, Andrew stepped out of his office, phone pressed to his ear, his expression serious. He turned towards the pantry and froze. His eyes locked on Anna standing at the end of the corridor. They widened in pure shock. The phone nearly slipped from his hand as he stumbled back slightly, face draining of color as if he'd seen a ghost. Moments later, Margaret emerged from her office, carrying documents and a cup of coffee. Her sharp eyes scanned the hallway and stopped dead. Her hand trembled, the coffee sloshed, the documents slipped. The arrogance she wore so proudly vanished, replaced by undespisable terror. She stared at Rachel, then Anna, then Rachel again. Her mind struggled to connect the impossible dots. The shabby village woman she had insulted and thrown out the night before now stood tall and commanding in the very office that sustained her life. And Rachel, the daughter-in-law she dismissed as worthless, uneducated, and insignificant, would become the right hand of the CEO, a woman as powerful as her mother. That morning, Manhattan was veiled in a thin mist, slowly dissolving under the rising sun. To Rachel, the air felt lighter, charged with anticipation and the faint scent of victory. She wore a dark charcoal blazer paired with a perfectly tailored pencil skirt, the high-quality fabric draped flawlessly over her figure. Underneath, a crisp white silk blouse. Black patent stiletto heels completed the look. Her hair was styled into a sleek, modern bun. Her makeup was minimal, but precise. Nude lipstick, subtle eyeliner, accentuating eyes now filled with resolve. Rachel stood before a large mirror in her new bedroom, studying her reflection. This was no longer the Rachel who lowered her gaze, doubted herself, and allowed others to walk all over her. This was a new Rachel, strong, unyielding, ready to face anything, even hell itself. Anna Sullivan, now fully embodying her role as a powerful CEO, wore a luxurious cream-colored couture suit. Genuine pearl jewelry shimmered softly at her neck, and a high-end watch adorned her wrist. She smiled proudly at her daughter. "Are you ready, sweetheart?" Anna asked, calmly, her voice steady with conviction. A voice Rachel had only once heard when receiving gentle advice. "I'm ready," Rachel replied. "Very ready," she added, her eyes blazing. Adrenaline surged through her veins, fueling every step. They entered the same black Mercedes. Anna stepped forward. Her stride was steady, confident, unhurried, like a queen walking through her own palace. She stopped a few steps in front of Andrew and Margaret, deliberately allowing the tension to build. "Andrew, Margaret," she greeted calmly. Her voice was composed, yet carried unquestionable authority. Every syllable sounded like a final decree. "Good morning." Margaret finally found her voice, though it trembled violently, as if her vocal cords were being forced to work after being frozen for too long. "Anna, what are you doing here? Why are you dressed like this? This can't be real." She still couldn't believe what she was seeing. To Rachel, Margaret's questions sounded foolish and desperate, like someone trying to deceive herself, convincing her own mind that this was nothing more than a nightmare. Anna lifted an eyebrow slightly. Her gaze was cold, piercing, and utterly devoid of mercy. "This is my office, Margaret. Of course I'm here." She gestured gracefully around them. "And as for my appearance, do you have a problem with it?" She turned to Andrew, who had been standing there, frozen, staring in disbelief. "Andrew?" Andrew swallowed hard. "No, Miss Sullivan, of course not. We just didn't expect you to visit so early. We thought you were still in the countryside." He scrambled for excuses, desperately trying to mask his overwhelming shock and the fear creeping into his chest. "Visit?" Anna let out a soft chuckle. The laugh was hollow and cold, never reaching her eyes. "I'm not visiting, Andrew. I'm coming home." Anna then turned to face the employees who were pretending to stay busy while secretly listening in. Every ear was sharply tuned to her words. "Attention, everyone." Her voice rose slightly, just enough to cut through the tense silence of the corridor and draw even more attention. Instantly, all eyes were on her. Andrew and Margaret stiffened like a rope pulled to its limit. Cold sweat trickled down Andrew's temples. "Starting today, I, Anna Sullivan, will officially resume my role as CEO and owner of Mahartika Global Corp. I will be personally overseeing all operations and strategic decisions of this company." Her voice boomed with authority. "And I would also like to introduce my new right hand and our incoming Chief Operations Officer." Anna extended her hand toward Rachel, signaling her to step forward. Rachel walked ahead with confidence, standing beside her mother. Her head was held high as she looked straight ahead, directly at Andrew and Margaret, who now resembled lifeless statues. The color drained completely from their faces. "Allow me to introduce my daughter, Rachel Sullivan," Anna said proudly. "She will serve as my personal assistant effective today, and in the near future, she will assume the role of Chief Operations Officer of this company." Anna's gaze locked onto Andrew and Margaret, savoring every fragment of shock reflected in their eyes. Her words struck them like a sledgehammer. Margaret's face turned deathly pale, her lips trembling uncontrollably. She looked as though she had just seen hell in broad daylight, every nightmare she had ever feared becoming reality. Andrew staggered back a step, his eyes wide with disbelief. Rachel, his wife, whom he had always considered powerless, uneducated, and insignificant, was now part of the executive leadership, a future COO of the very company he had arrogantly claimed as his own. A company that, in truth, belonged to Rachel's mother, the woman he had allowed to be humiliated. Shame and regret began to crawl into his mind. Several employees whispered among themselves, but many looked at Rachel with respect, curiosity, and admiration. Everyone knew who Anna Sullivan was, a legend in the corporate world. They also knew Rachel was Andrew's wife, but none of them had known the connection ran this deep. The atmosphere in the corridor shifted entirely, from silence to stunned murmurs. Anna then turned away from Andrew and Margaret, as if they no longer mattered. "Daisy," she called calmly, Schedule a board meeting with all department heads within the next hour in the main conference room. Clear all schedules. I have important announcements to make, including the official introduction of Rachel's new role." "Yes, Miss Sullivan," Daisy replied briskly, already coordinating through her headset. Before leaving, Anna glanced back at Andrew and Margaret one last time. A sharp, mocking smile curved her lips. "Andrew, Margaret, make sure you attend. This will be a very interesting meeting. I guarantee it." Without waiting for a response, Anna turned and walked toward the CEO's office at the far end of the corridor, the most prestigious room on the floor. Rachel followed, her steps light. Before entering, she looked back once more at Andrew and Margaret. A faint smile appeared on her lips. A smile that once held sorrow and pain was now replaced by deep satisfaction. A victory that tasted incredibly sweet. This time, they could no longer belittle her. They were trapped in the lion's den now, and the lions were her mother and herself. The first victory felt intoxicating.
"All right," Anna said calmly, shifting the meeting toward its core agenda. "We will now address several critical matters that cannot be postponed." She pressed a button on the remote in her hand, and a detailed data projection appeared on the large screen mounted on the wall. What appeared next shocked everyone in the room. Company performance data revealed serious irregularities and anomalies in several financial reports and project evaluations. Anna began citing significant losses in projects that should have generated substantial profits, particularly the Green Valley Residence Housing Project and City View Tower. "These numbers don't make sense," Anna said evenly. Her sharp gaze locked directly onto Margaret, the head of finance. The intensity of Anna's stare felt like an interrogation under a spotlight. "The reports I received show extremely low profitability. Some projects are even operating at a loss. This is despite the enormous market potential and the millions of dollars we invested." Her voice hardened. "I want a detailed explanation, Margaret. There are discrepancies in these figures." Margaret jolted in her seat, her body flinching visibly. Her face flushed deep red, no longer pale. She stammered, lips trembling as she struggled to find words. "That's because of extremely high operational costs, Miss Sullivan. Market volatility, unpredictable material price increases." "High operating costs, market fluctuations." Anna let out a cold, soundless smirk. "The data I have says otherwise," she replied flatly. "In fact, it suggests budget inflation and abnormal fund allocations. There are also suspicious transactions that were never properly recorded. I even found duplicate payments made to the same vendors." She clicked the remote again. Complex financial charts filled the screen, red numbers glaring unmistakably, dismantling every excuse Margaret had attempted to make. The room fell into complete silence. All eyes turned toward Margaret, who now looked like a fish gasping for air trapped in a net. Cold sweat trickled down her temples. Andrew, seated beside her, lowered his head as well, fearful of the fallout, painfully aware that they were now standing on the edge of a cliff. Rachel observed quietly. She watched Andrew and Margaret's faces cycle through pale shock, burning humiliation, and back to fear. The game had only just begun, and Anna, the ultimate authority, was revealing her claws slowly, deliberately, and painfully. The emergency meeting ended in suffocating tension, leaving behind a trail of unease throughout the room. Margaret stood abruptly, her face twisted with stress, breathing unevenly. She rushed out of the room without daring to look at anyone, like a cornered rat fleeing its trap. Andrew followed close behind, trying to keep pace with his mother. Occasionally, he glanced at Rachel, his eyes filled with confusion, questions, and a trace of guilt, as if desperately trying to figure out how much she knew and what would happen next. Rachel met his gaze with nothing more than a thin, unreadable smile.
The same face that once carried sadness now radiated certainty, deepening Andrew's anxiety and fear. From that day on, Anna and Rachel worked relentlessly, like two generals planning a war. Anna took full control of Mahardika Global Corp, personally overseeing every major decision. She no longer relied on raw reports from Andrew or Margaret. Every document, every proposal required her direct approval. Meanwhile, under Anna's direct mentorship, Rachel rapidly mastered the inner workings of the company. With her exceptional background in business management, sharp intellect, and analytical precision, she absorbed information like a sponge. One department at a time, she began conducting audits, focusing especially on finance and marketing, the divisions long controlled by Margaret and Andrew. "We need solid evidence," Anna said one evening in her spacious office as they reviewed towering stacks of project documents. "This level of fund inflation couldn't have been done by just two people. There has to be a bigger network." Rachel nodded, tapping her finger against the tablet displaying financial graphs. "I already suspect several vendors they frequently use. Their names keep appearing in major projects. Payments always exceed reasonable estimates, and some companies appear repeatedly with massive transaction amounts, even for minor jobs." With full access to the systems, now under Anna's control, Rachel dug deeper, far deeper than Andrew and Margaret ever imagined. She examined every transaction, contract detail, and data point, comparing budgets against actual spending, analyzing anomalies with surgical precision. She worked tirelessly, often leaving the office last, sometimes staying overnight. Daisy assisted closely, helping gather information and verify data. The internal audit team, now fully loyal to Anna, worked quietly and efficiently alongside Rachel. One night, while reviewing digital bank transfer records, Rachel noticed a recurring pattern. Large sums amounting to millions of US dollars had been transferred repeatedly into a personal account under a familiar name. Herman Williams, a senior project director widely respected within the company, publicly known for his integrity. More shocking still, Herman was a close associate of Margaret, frequently seen having lunch together, frequently assigned to the same projects. These transfers occurred consistently right after major project payments approved by Margaret and Andrew. "Mom, look at this," Rachel said, her voice tightening slightly as she turned her laptop toward Anna. "Transfers to Herman Williams' account. These aren't salaries or bonuses. This looks like hidden commissions or bribes." Anna narrowed her eyes, studying the screen carefully. A cold smirk curved her lips. "Herman Williams," she murmured. "I suspected there was another player behind this. He always looked harmless, but he's a wolf in sheep's clothing." Her expression hardened with resolve. "This is the key evidence we needed. Our net is tightening." The investigation didn't stop there. With this lead, Rachel traced Herman's assets and lifestyle with help from the company's legal team, now fully under Anna's command. They discovered multiple luxury properties, a hillside villa, a downtown penthouse, high-end sports cars, and various investments, none of which aligned with his official salary. Several properties were registered under distant relatives or newly formed shell companies, a classic method of hiding assets. As Anna and Rachel compiled undeniable evidence, Margaret and Andrew began to feel the pressure. Every move at the office felt watched. Every email, every phone call felt monitored. Meetings led by Anna demanded increasingly transparent reports, sharp questions that left them struggling to respond. Margaret panicked more than once when Anna suddenly demanded detailed financial statements she knew had been manipulated. Andrew, once relaxed and joking, now appeared tense, restless, constantly retreating to the restroom like a man unraveling under heat. They tried to find loopholes, tried to erase trails, but every door was now sealed, every data entry analyzed instantly by Rachel. One day, a desperate Margaret cornered Rachel in the office pantry while Rachel was getting water. Margaret looked exhausted, broken. Rachel, I know I went too far before. I'm sorry, dear. Please, I'm your mother-in-law. We're family. We can talk this out. Her voice was pleading, nothing like the arrogant tone she once used. Rachel stared at her coldly, unblinking, without a trace of compassion. I work professionally, Margaret. In this office, I only recognize Anna Sullivan as my superior and Daisy as my colleague. Family belongs at home, not here. And as for yesterday, you showed exactly how you treat family. I won't forget that. She turned and walked away, leaving Margaret frozen in place. The warm, gentle daughter-in-law Margaret once controlled was gone. Rachel's calm hands had become precise instruments of reckoning. Every piece of evidence she collected was another nail sealing Andrew and Margaret's fate. The atmosphere across the company grew heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. Rumors spread rapidly throughout Mahardika Global Corp about Anna Sullivan returning and Rachel's rise as her right hand. Andrew and Margaret, once feared and respected, now lived under the shadow of constant dread. They avoided Rachel entirely after the pantry incident. 1 week after the emergency meeting, Anna summoned Andrew and Margaret to her office. The grand CEO suite felt colder than ever. Anna sat firmly behind her executive desk. Rachel sat calmly on the sofa beside her, sharp-eyed, holding a thick folder in her hand. Daisy stood in the corner, tablet ready. The reckoning was about to begin.
Please have a seat, Andrew. Margaret, Anna said flatly. Her voice was devoid of emotion. Andrew and Margaret sat down in the chairs across from Anna's desk. Their bodies were rigid, their anxiety unmistakable. They knew this was no ordinary meeting. I won't waste your time, Anna continued, getting straight to the point. After conducting a comprehensive audit over the past week with the assistance of Rachel and our internal audit team, we have uncovered several extremely serious findings. Anna exhaled slowly, her piercing gaze fixed on Margaret. Margaret, as head of finance, you are fully responsible for the fund inflation in the Green Valley Residence and City View Tower projects. We possess concrete evidence of transfers to fictitious vendors, fake material purchases, and misappropriation of company funds amounting to millions of US dollars. The evidence is overwhelming. Margaret jolted, her face drained of color. No, no, Miss Sullivan, that's not true. This is all a misunderstanding. I would never do that. She tried to defend herself, but her voice trembled uncontrollably. Don't lie, Margaret, Rachel said calmly, her tone sharp. She placed a thick folder on the desk and opened it, revealing stacks of documents and data charts. We have bank statements, transfer records, and even recorded conversations between you and several vendors discussing specific commissions. At the words recorded conversations, Margaret froze. Her eyes widened in terror as she turned to Andrew, desperately searching for support. But Andrew sat frozen in his chair, unable to move. And Andrew, Anna continued, now turning her gaze toward him, as marketing manager, you were also involved in this scheme. We have evidence that you approved inflated budgets, received unauthorized fees from multiple projects, and engaged in suspicious transactions with Herman Williams, whom we believe acted as your intermediary. Andrew lifted his head, panic and disbelief flooding his eyes. No, Miss Sullivan, I didn't know anything about that. I was just following my mother's instructions. He tried to deflect the blame. Oh, so now you're blaming each other, Anna said, a cold smile forming. That doesn't change the facts. The evidence is conclusive. You have both committed fraud and embezzlement of company funds. These are criminal offenses that could lead you straight into legal prosecution.
The words criminal offenses and legal prosecution struck them like thunder. Margaret and Andrew fell silent, fear gripping them tightly. However, Anna continued, her voice softening slightly, though her authority remained absolute. I don't wish to drag this matter through the courts for the sake of the company's reputation. Therefore, I will give you a choice. Margaret and Andrew lifted their heads slightly. A flicker of hope appeared in their eyes. Option 1, Anna said calmly. I report both of you to the authorities with all the evidence we have. You will face criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement, which could result in prison sentences and extremely heavy fines. They swallowed hard, their faces turning pale once again. Or, option 2, Anna continued, her eyes narrowing, you resign from this company immediately, effective today. All company benefits and privileges will be revoked. Margaret and Andrew, you will vacate the company apartment and surrender all assets tied to misappropriated company funds. There will be no severance pay, no recommendation letters. You will leave this company without a single dollar from us. And, in return, we will not pursue legal action, on one condition. You must promise never to interfere with our lives again, especially Rachel's and mine. Silence filled the room. This was an ultimatum, a choice between two devastating outcomes. For Margaret and Andrew, losing their positions, wealth, and even their home was a crushing blow. But prison was far more terrifying. Margaret, once so arrogant, lowered her head. Andrew looked at Rachel, his eyes pleading. Rachel met his gaze with complete indifference. She felt no pity. This was repayment for everything they had done to her mother. So, Anna said, glancing at her watch, what's your decision? You have 10 minutes. Margaret and Andrew exchanged a look. Their expressions reflected bitter defeat. This was not merely an expulsion from the company, but the luxurious life they had enjoyed, built ironically on stolen wealth. 10 minutes passed like an eternity. The room felt colder, as if freezing along with their last shred of hope. Margaret's face crumpled, tears pooling in her eyes, washing away the last remnants of pride. Andrew kept his head lowered, unable to face anyone. They both knew there was no escape. The evidence was too strong, and prison was a nightmare worse than losing everything. Well, Anna asked again, her voice calm yet pressing. Margaret finally looked up, her eyes swollen with tears. We accept the second option, Miss Sullivan, she said hoarsely. We will resign. Andrew nodded weakly. Yes, Miss Sullivan, we will step down. Rachel observed them closely. There was no mercy in her heart, only cold satisfaction. This was the price they had to pay. Very well, Anna said, nodding. Daisy, prepare their resignation letters. Ensure all clauses regarding revocation of benefits and non-interference are clearly stated. Give them 2 hours to vacate the company apartment and surrender all related assets. Daisy nodded swiftly, typing on her tablet. One more thing, Anna added sharply, locking eyes with Margaret and Andrew. Effective immediately, you no longer have access to any company systems. All your data will be erased, and you are prohibited from entering this building without my explicit permission. Margaret and Andrew's faces drained of all color. They knew this was the end of luxury, the end of status, the end of their dominance. They stood up unsteadily, shoulders slumped. Without a word, they left the room to gather their personal belongings. Then Anna turned to Rachel, a faint smile on her lips. Good work, my dear. You've proven you have claws. Rachel returned a subtle smile. This is all because of you, Mom, And this is only the beginning. A few hours later, from the CEO office window, Rachel watched a regular taxi drive away from the building's lobby. Inside were the silhouettes of Margaret and Andrew, carrying only a few small suitcases. No luxury car, no private driver, no status. Just two people who had lost everything, returned to zero, perhaps even less. Rachel felt the weight on her chest lift slightly. Revenge was bitter, but also liberating. Her mother would no longer endure humiliation. Justice had been served. "What will you do next, Mom?" Rachel asked. Anna looked at her daughter, relief and hope shining in her eyes. "We rebuild. Stronger, cleaner. This company will be purged of all corruption. And you, Rachel, you will be a crucial part of Mahardika Global Corp's future. You will learn to become a true leader." Rachel nodded. She knew their journey had only begun. With Anna as both mentor and mother, she was ready to face any challenge. She was no longer a mistreated daughter-in-law, nor merely the daughter of a woman once underestimated. She was an heir, a future leader, and, most importantly, a woman who had found her own power. A new chapter of her life had officially begun. Weeks passed after the forced resignations of Margaret and Andrew. The atmosphere at Mahardika Global Corp transformed dramatically. Tension was replaced with optimism and efficiency. Under Anna Sullivan's leadership, the company moved swiftly towards recovery. Rachel, now serving as the CEO's personal assistant and incoming chief operating officer, became a central figure. She worked tirelessly beside Anna, attending every meeting, decision, and ongoing internal investigation. Rachel proved herself a highly capable right hand. Her intelligence, attention to detail, and adaptability deeply impressed Anna. She quickly mastered the property development industry, business workflows, and even began offering sharp, strategic insights. "We're going to implement a major restructuring, Rachel. We must clean up everything Margaret and Andrew left behind. All divisions must operate transparently and efficiently. We'll enforce stricter internal audits and assign independent oversight teams to every project." Rachel nodded.